Hey everyone, Christian here, and this is another palm review. This time I'm going to do Copernicia hospita, which is going to be this palm right here, this trunk. So, like many Copernicias, this Copernicia is from Cuba, and it has that Cuban look about it with the broader petioles, not as broad as Bailey or Falence, but that black armament. I'm going to try and talk over this rooster while we do this. Yeah, it has upright leaflets, not very, mostly just palmate with very little costa palmate any sort in it. There's a little bit on the outer leaves, but that's more of just being old and a little bit ratty. But hospita doesn't have as big of a trunk as Bailey and Falence, but it still has that bluish silver color, which is actually hard to see. The undersides don't really have it, but the tops do, and it's quite a bluish, almost white palm when put in the proper amount of sun. So these palms are kind of, I like to call them the rich man's Washingtonia, because they do have that blue color. They do have they have a more regal look about them. It may not be as stunning as, say, a Baileyana or a Falence, but it still is quite a durable plant that isn't really that fast for a grower, but it still takes some patience to kind of let this grow out into a mature specimen. This palm here is actually almost ready to start seeding. It's almost to that size where Bailey's and Falence and Gigas, the bigger ones, really have to have 15 feet of wood before they are going to start putting out seed. And when they put out their seeds, their flowers they're interflorescent, meaning that the flowers actually come outside of the actual fronds, where many fluorescences sit inside the foliage. So, excuse me, dry mouth. It's hot out here. But yeah, typically, like all Cuban Copernicias, it's gonna very stiff leaves, as my hat can tell you. That nice black armament, which on most palms would seem kind of like something you wouldn't want, but for some reason on Copernicias it just looks right. So a little bit of fiber there in the crown, and it does hold a lot of its older boots when they are trimmed off, but they will eventually come off. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely if you don't have as much room for a larger Copernicia, but still want a nice silvery white look, these definitely can do the job. And they are still highly collectible. People do love this species. It's just a little bit smaller versus the other ones. So the seed of this, like many Copernicia, is kind of like the size of a marble. A lot of Copernicia seed looks almost identical. Some differ in size. Gigas is a little bit smaller. Like other species can be a little bit bigger. This one's kind of in the middle. The biggest seed that I usually encounter is macroglossa, which is like a large marble versus a smaller marble. But they kind of have this marbling look about them, but they are spherical. And they all like to root very deeply. So if you are going to try and grow this palm from seed, you're going to want a deep pot to germinate them in. And be careful, as usual, of hybrids of seed. And most of the time where these are planted, there's going to be other Copernicias nearby. For example, there's a macroglossa right over here. And some hybrids can be very interesting, but some can be kind of ratty, and they just don't look right. And they really don't have a lot of intrinsic value to a collector. And the only positive to it is they can sometimes put out some really weird leaves, and they can grow a little bit faster. So other than that, as far as cold hardiness, I have a friend who lives in a very marginal zone B, and they have one of these that it's about this size. It has been stunted a little bit due to the cold snaps. I've seen it burn, but I've seen it come right back as well. So it has probably the same cold hardness as any other Cuban Copernicia. The only other the real true silver Cuban Copernicias that I really notice is Copernicia coelii. Baileyana and Falence can have silver or blue characteristics, but I wouldn't categorize them as a blue palm. They're more just a large green palm with maybe some silver or blue accents to them. So, but yeah, that's probably about it for hospita. One thing I should mention is where the name comes from. So, hospita, meaning hospitable, you would think means that this palm is hospitable for humans, when actually it's more hospitable for rodents, because in habitat, the leaves will not come off for a long time, so it does get somewhat of a ratty skirt, and it's quite a little haven for rats, squirrels, mice, you name it. But if you trim it up, that won't be a problem with these plants. As with all Copernicias, they usually are trimmed up pretty close to the this is probably about what you're going to expect when you see a hospita crown, leaves right kind of at the horizontal going up. And they do start to grow a little bit faster as they get older as well. That's another positive there. So anyway, that's about it for Copernicia hospita. If you have any questions, leave it down below. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, and you'll see many more palm reviews like this. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see everyone next time.